So recently, Dana White announced one of the most highly anticipated fights of the year, and that is Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev for UFC 319. And look, man, the best way to describe this fight is batshit crazy, because that's exactly what this matchup is. And I believe that they are each other's worst nightmare in the middleweight division. And I don't believe that this fight is going to be close. Now, what I mean by this fight not being close is there's only two outcomes. The judges, they can take the main event off. We are not going to need them, because this fight in no way, shape, or form is going to the judges' scorecards. This is a very straightforward matchup. This is going to be Khamzat going out there, doing what he does, taking Dricus down, finding that submission, or maybe finding some sort of knockout if Dricus is too reactive to the takedowns. Or it is going to be DDP surviving the early onslaught, dragging this out into the championship rounds to where he can find that finish over Khamzat Chimaev. Because to me, this fight is as cut and dry as it gets. And like I said, this ain't going to the scorecards, man. You can mark my words on that, because when we talk about Khamzat Chimaev, this is a true ground specialist, an elite submission ace when it comes to the grappling. The way that he goes after people, I mean, what you saw against Robert Whittaker, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. This guy shot a low double from about 100 yards away, about a centimeter off the ground, got a hold of Robert Whittaker, was able to get to his back, was able to leg ride, and ultimately find a rear naked choke that was just, I mean, beyond impressive. Nobody does that to Robert Whittaker, and that is going to be what obviously Khamzat is going to have to do in this fight, because I do not believe that Boers has been in there with anybody like DDP, a brute force, a unit of a guy, the guy with the plot armor, man. Like DDP, he's a big, strong guy. He's a super well-rounded fighter who is undefeated in the UFC, who is coming off some very impressive victories after beating Sean Strickland twice, submitting Israel Adesanya, and we all know what he's been able to do in those other fights, right? But there is that very interesting fight that happened back at UFC 285 to where I cannot get the horrors out of my head of Derek Brunson taking DDP down, flattening him out, taking his back and putting him in these god-awful positions to where I'm like, if that's Khamzat Chimaev, this thing's a wrap, man. There's no way, shape, or form that DDP's being put in these positions against Chimaev and he's not getting submitted. I mean, Khamzat, if he gets DDP into these scenarios, it is absolutely going to be a wrap. Now, we all know Khamzat's game plan. We already know what he's going to do. But I think that what people overlook about Khamzat, this guy has true one-shot knockout power. I know he was in a back-and-forth war with Gilbert Burns. I know that he was in a back-and-forth with Kamaru Usman. But when he was out there against Gerald Meerschaert, which was at 185 pounds, he marched him down and he landed a beautiful corkscrew right hand that completely starched Gerald Meerschaert and shut his lights out. So we all know that Khamzat is capable of knocking someone out. So I could very easily see him coming in, feinting level changes if DDP is too reactive, and then Khamzat lands either an uppercut or a corkscrew right hand that is able to starch Dricus Du Plessis. Now, I don't think that that's the most likely thing, because what we've seen about DDP, he's incredibly gritty, incredibly durable, and I just don't see him going out like that. So in this fight, the pressure, the pace, the top control, the ground and pound, and working in those submissions and getting to those dominant positions is how Khamzat is going to win this fight. But I think he's only got about 2 rounds to do it, man. I think he's only got about 2 rounds to do it, because if he cannot get DDP out of there fast, he is going to get drugged into the deep water, and those are spots that Chimaev has never been, man. I know he's been 3 rounds with Usman. I know he's been 3 rounds with Burns. And by the way, that Gilbert Burns fight, that is one of the greatest fights of all time. That is a crazy war between the two, but we have not seen Chimaev get into a 4th round. We have not seen him get into a 5th round. So that championship experience, I believe, will come into play if Khamzat does not get DDP out of there early, because we all know Dricus Du Plessis, he's built for this, man. He is built for these types of challenges, to where he has a super dominant force, an aggressive guy like Khamzat who's going to come after him, which I think actually excites DDP for this matchup. And DDP's built for this, man. He is built for these 5-round fights, because what we've seen from him, it doesn't have to be pretty. He can look super exhausted, swinging these big wild shots that it's like, man, that's not how you're supposed to throw a punch, but DDP doesn't care. This guy goes out there with crazy technique, crazy volume, crazy output, crazy dynamic arsenal, and he thrives, man. He thrives in the chaos, and early on, he has these very strategic approaches. His coach, Mornay Fisser, and him, they come up with these, very, very methodical game plans to where I believe that they are going to be prepared for a rough first round with Khamzat. And if they can get through that hurricane, that storm in the first round, I think that he can drag Chimaev out and take him into very deep waters and make this thing ugly, because the dude's awkward, man. The dude is awkward, he's unorthodox, and he does have a gas tank that for a long time people were like, this guy doesn't have any cardio. His body language is looking bad. He's up against the fence, huffing and puffing, taking these deep breaths. Then he got the nose fixed. And I know people were joking about that, but I'm like, listen, if you can't breathe out of your nose and now all of a sudden you can, that can only help you. It can't hurt, right? And it feels like we have just seen a different level of DDP. And when you become the champion, we know that fighters take their game to the next level. I mean, what he's been able to do, submitting Israel Adesanya, going out there and absolutely beating off the brakes off of Sean Strickland over the course of 25 minutes. This guy is constantly improving, and if Khamzat even slows down for a little bit in this fight, DDP will smell that like a shark in the water. He will put his foot on the gas, and he will look to drown Khamzat as this fight plays out. This fight, to me, this is an absolute wild card, which makes this fight so spectacular. I see that Khamzat is the favorite coming into this. You all know Khamzat is my guy. I still think that that is absolutely crazy, because from what we've seen from DDP, he has been sensational inside the UFC, as has been Khamzat. But when you're the champion, you're going out there defending the title, you're putting on these impressive performances, I find it shocking that he is not the favorite coming into this. But that tells you what people think about Borsman, the elite submission skills that he has, the aggressiveness, the aura, because when Khamzat is on, there's nobody scarier in round one in UFC history than Khamzat Chimaev. But if you can survive the early onslaught, because we saw against Kamaru Usman, nobody goes out there and does that to Kamaru Usman. Nobody goes out there and does that to Robert Whittaker. But what we saw in the Usman fight, he put Kamaru in some bad positions. But when Kamaru was able to survive, take it to that second round, take it to that third round, and I know Khamzat had a compromised hand in that fight, you see, this guy is not who he is in the first round. Now, one of the myths as well is people say Khamzat has a bad gas tank. We've seen him go 15 minutes with Usman. We've seen him go a hard 15 minutes with Gilbert Burns. So I think that the gas tank thing is not as bad as what a lot of people say. But when you're in there against the biggest guy that Khamzat has fought in terms of the physicality, in terms of the well-rounded skill set, I think that if Khamzat can't get him out of there early, it is going to be an absolute disaster, because this is the best overall striker that Khamzat has faced. It is the strongest opponent that he has faced, and it is the most well-rounded opponent that he has faced. So again, we've never seen Khamzat in rounds 4 and 5. We've seen Dricus Du Plessis go a hard 25 minutes with Sean Strickland twice. We've seen him submit Israel Adesanya later in the fights. We've seen him knock out Robert Whittaker earlier in the fights. But as Khamzat said,
what do you think, guys? How I done with this guy, Rob? How he done? Rob took him down. So if Rob took him down, so there is salam alaikum.
If Rob took him down, this is very salam alaikum. And I think if Khamzat Chimaev gets Dricus Du Plessis down early, man, he gets to the back, he locks in that rear naked choke, I think that he could beat Dricus Du Plessis. But make no mistake about it, if he cannot get it done early and DDP can solve that explosiveness early, I think that Dricus finishes Khamzat in those later rounds, because on the feet, while Khamzat is better than what people give him credit for, he is not nearly as good of a striker as DDP. But with the threat of the takedowns, making DDP probably a little bit hesitant because of the threat of the grappling, that opens up a dangerous right hand or a dangerous uppercut. I could very much see Khamzat landing a shot like that in this fight. But man, are we going to get some answers at UFC 319. Either way, somebody is getting finished. But if I had to make a pick, I think my guy Khamzat Chimaev is that damn good. I don't think that DDP has faced anybody with this type of grappling ability. I think Khamzat Chimaev finds a submission in round number 2.